Good morning, everyone. It's really fitting that we consider a suffrage memorial today because yesterday marked the 100th anniversary of this chamber's passage of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. And this August is the 99th anniversary of the ratification of that constitutional amendment. The chair now recognizes Ms. Anna Laymon, the National Events Director of the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the chair, to the ranking member, to committee members, and my fellow witnesses gathered here today. I want to say, sitting in this room, I have been so struck by the mission that you all have to preserve and tell the untold stories of American history. It's been moving to be here today, for sure. I am thrilled to be here to discuss H.R. 473, to place the Every Word We Utter statue in Washington, D.C. as the first outdoor statue dedicated to the women's suffrage movement in our nation's capital. My name is Anna Laymon, and I am the National Events Director for the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission. We were created by Congress in 2017 to coordinate the nationwide celebration of the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. The commission works to ensure that the story of women's fight for the ballot is shared and commemorated. The bipartisan commission is chaired by Mrs. Kay Coles James, the president of the Heritage Foundation, and former Senator Barbara Mikulski, so we are truly bipartisan. I actually think I was here yesterday. I think I pinned on a number of your roses as we commemorated the House centennial of the passage of the 19th Amendment just yesterday, so it's good to see you all again. I serve a critical role on the commission, coordinating legislative efforts to honor the 19th Amendment, as well as planning the country's nationwide commemorative events and activities. Prior to joining the commission, I worked as the Director of Partnerships and Public Programs for the National Woman's Party, which is the historic nonprofit founded by Alice Paul in 1913 for this very effort to make sure that women had the constitutional right to vote. The NWP actually still operates today. It exists at the Belmont Paul Women's Equality National Monument, just on the other side of the hill in the sort of corner of the Hart Senate office building. You've probably walked right by it. And we are still there today. We run that museum, that monument, in partnership with the National Park Service. It is my honor and my privilege to be a part of the team that's coordinating the nationwide efforts to commemorate the centennial of the passage of the 19th Amendment, and to be here today as a part of that commemoration. So, I join you today to lend my voice to the efforts to create a public monument to commemorate the women who waged and won the fight for women's right to vote. Designed by renowned sculptor Jane DeDecker, who is here sitting behind me today, the statue we are discussing will be cast in bronze. It's approximated to be 21 feet tall with a 10-foot circular base. It's pretty big. The suggested placement for this statue is near the Belmont Paul Women's Equality National Monument and the Supreme Court. I could not think of a better place to put this public monument for the women's suffrage movement. The statue depicts Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and her daughter Harriet Stanton Blatch, Sojourner Truth, Alice Paul, and Ida B. Wells. These women encapsulate both the sustained activism of the suffrage movement over multiple generations, as well as the diversity and patriotism of this movement. Each of the depicted women brought something unique and irreplaceable to the fight for suffrage. From Sojourner Truth, who threw off the shackles of slavery, fled freedom to the North, and proclaimed to her sisters in suffrage the humanity of women of color when she asked, "Ain't I a woman?" To Alice Paul, who brought women out of the home and into the streets to protest for national change. This statue epitomizes the very tenets of the suffrage movement, tenets on which our nation was founded: freedom, peaceful protest, and millions of diverse voices coming together as one to create change. The true art of this statue, though, it doesn't lie just in who it depicts physically, but in the symbolism of the continued path towards equality that it represents. Just as our nation is an ongoing, evolving experiment in democracy, so too are the movements for equality within it. As Elizabeth Cady Stanton remarked in a letter to Lucretia Mott explaining the continuous nature of this movement, from which the artist Jane DeDecker drew her inspiration for this work, every word we utter, every act we perform, wafts into innumerable circles beyond. So at no cost to the taxpayer, you have the opportunity today to commemorate the women who led our nation to greater equality. There is absolutely no better way to celebrate the centennial of women's suffrage than with this kind of public commemoration, which will create ripples of inspiration for every generation to come. In closing, I would like to quote one of the mothers of the suffrage movement, Alice Paul, the founder of the National Woman's Party, who said, "I never doubted that equal rights was the right direction. Most reforms, most problems are complicated. But to me, there is nothing complicated about ordinary equality." So on behalf of that ordinary equality, and in honor of all the women who fought for the vote for each of us, those whose stories we know, and those thousands more whose stories we have forgotten, I urge you to support the establishment of the Every Word We Utter statue. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Laymon, for that valuable testimony.
I hope that the monument just inspires young women. Little girls.